I sent him up there to that school because y'all need to know how to handle. I thought they had teachers that know how to handle kids. I mean, if y'all can't handle them, I don't know what you want me to do.
Yep, we have these phone calls all the time, but as teachers, there's definitely some things that we can do to help manage it. So here we go. You're watching Misfit to Teach. Welcome back, teacher friends. I am Nina Rodriguez, and this is the Misfit to Teach channel, where I talk about all things teaching and how to stay mentally, physically, and emotionally fit to teach. So if you have not already joined our community, please do so by hitting the subscribe button and the notification bell so that we can come together every week. So I wanted to wait a few weeks or a couple weeks before I talked about this particular issue with this phone call. It went viral for the obvious reasons. And I didn't want our conversation to be like bashing, one side or the other. Instead, I wanted to talk about some constructive things that we can do on phone calls like this. So if you haven't already seen that video, here it is.
Is Miss Glass from your child's school?
Yeah, I know who this is. What's going on?
Hey, I was calling because I'm having a little bit of an issue out of your son today. He is not wanting to sit down in his seat, and he will not stop talking. So
Oh my God, I thought he was sick. So y'all don't handle that?
Well, usually we use our behavior management system, which requires for us to call the parent if the behavior is getting...
It don't seem like it's really managing that if you, y'all can't, I'm trying to work.
And I understand that, and I also am trying to work, but I want us to work together to ensure the success of your scholar.
She's trying to get smart. Okay.
No, ma'am, I'm not trying to get smart. I just want us to work together to ensure the success of your scholar.
Well, what he doing?
He won't sit down and he won't stop talking. Therefore, he's not able to complete.
You can't make him sit down.
Well, I can't make a child do anything. I can request it. I can ask it, but I can't make him do it. And so I'm wanting to work together.
Like, I sent him up there to that school because y'all need to know how to handle. I thought they had teachers that know how to handle kids. If y'all can't handle them, I don't know what you want me to do.
Okay, so obviously as you can tell, there's a lot of different opinions for a lot of valid reasons. And at this point, it's neither here nor there because, again, I want to talk today about some constructive things that we can do with this phone call so that we can make it better, because I think that with a few tweaks in how we manage this conversation, we could have gotten a better result. So I think one of the things you'll notice right off the top of the phone call is that the teacher introduces herself. The parent says she already knows who she is, so the parent is anticipating this phone call in some form or fashion, and the teacher goes right into the reason for her call, sort of what's happening with the student's behavior, what she's been experiencing in the classroom. And while I really appreciate the teacher's interest in getting right to the point, she's not lollygagging, she's not wasting time. I feel like it's better if we prime the parent for the reason for the call. And so step one in my method when I'm contacting parents is to do this. In step one, after I've introduced myself and I'm saying the reason for my call, hello, this is Nina Rodriguez. I am a teacher at such and such school. I'm looking for such and such parent. Once the parent has identified themselves, oh yeah, this is she, or yes, this is him speaking, what's going on? The first thing I want to do is assure the parent of the child's safety. This is an important step because this helps the parent to disengage their defense mechanisms. You'll notice in that phone call that the parent says, oh, I thought my child was sick. If I start the top of the phone call assuring the parent of the child's safety, then all of those worries are out the window, right? Because just imagine, a lot of times with these parents, they don't realize that the teacher is only gonna call for a certain set of reasons, and then administrators are going to call for other things. In the parent's mind, the teacher is going to call if there's been a natural disaster, if a fire done broke out of the building, if the child has rolled down a flight of stairs. It could be any number of things. But they don't understand usually is just going to be teachers calling if it's sort of what we call a low level behavior. So at the top of the phone call, what I want you to do is assure the parent that the child is generally safe. And that might sound something like this. So first things first, Miss Graham, I just wanted to let you know that your child is not sick, your child has not been injured, your child is not hurt, your child's not been in a fight, nothing like that. When I do that, again, the parents' defense mechanisms come down. You might even get a little bit of a laugh out of them. Like, oh, okay, well, as long as they're not sick or hurt, I can handle anything with this phone call. What do you got? Following that, the next step I like to do in these phone calls is assure the parent that I'm going to honor their time. And what I mean by that is you don't know what you're walking into with this phone call, and you don't know what is happening on the other end of the phone call. This parent could be working third shift and you just called them in the middle of the day when they're trying to sleep. This parent could have 5 minutes left on their lunch break and they're trying to walk back to the building. So if I tell the parent in step 2 that I'm going to honor their time and keep this conversation short, that helps us to focus on business and then move on. So that might sound something like this. Miss Graham, I realize that you're probably really busy, and I know that I may have interrupted something. So just real quick, I just wanted to go over with you a behavior regarding Micah today. So if I've completed step 1, which is that I have assured them of the child's safety, and step 2, that I'm going to honor their time and make the conversation quick, I can move quickly into step 3. Step 3 is very important, and I want you to make sure that you don't forget to do this, because it is going to help build your rapport with the parent or guardian regarding that child. So step 3, I want you to find something to compliment you, the student, about. Find a reason to butter up that parent. Give them something to be happy about regarding the child before you go into your concern. Now, if you can't think of a single thing, first of all, I'm not really buying that. I want you to think about the last several days or interactions you've had with the student. Find something, anything that you can give praise about the child before you go into the concern. Again, to keep the parents' defense mechanisms low. If the student had completed all of their assignments so far in the day, if they've done a really good job basically keeping their hands to themselves, if they were the class helper, anything that you can think of that would help to bolster the parents' confidence is going to be useful to you in the rest of the conversation. So again, step 3, be complimentary of the child before you go into the concern. So Miss Graham, here lately, I've been very happy with how Micah has been coming to the classroom on time. He's been going straight to his seat, completed all of the assignments so far in the day. So you can imagine my concern today when he was standing up in his chair and would not stop talking. After I have been a little bit complimentary of the child, and then I express my concern very, very quickly and concisely, I want to go into step 4. After you have disclosed the concerning behavior to the parent, ask them if there is a reason for that behavior. So what I mean by that is when you ask the parent if there's a reason why this might be happening that they know of, it helps to now engage them in solution finding. You'd be surprised a lot of times how often these parents will come back and give you some feedback that could attribute to the student's behavior in your classroom. And it could be a variety of things like, yeah, I probably should have told you guys, Micah has been off of his ADHD medication for the last few days. So if you're noticing some craziness in the classroom, that might have something to do with it. When you ask this question to the parent, you're engaging them again in solution finding, and you're also going to help to keep the conversation concise, because they're either going to give you a yes or a no. If the answer is yes and they have some information to sort of attribute to the behavior, congratulations, mystery solved. Now the two of you can work together for the rest of that phone call to find an appropriate solution. If the answer is no, we want to keep going a little bit, pressing for some more information to try to find an adequate solution to address the behavior. Regardless of if it's a yes or a no, though, you're going to go right into step 5, which is to thank them for whatever information or feedback they have. Okay, great. I appreciate you kind of thinking about that and telling me anything, right off the top of your head that might be attributing to this, because that definitely helps me. So thank you. Once you have thanked them for their feedback, any possible things that are going on at home or outside of school that could help, you want to go into step 6. Step 6, you have to describe any solutions that you've already tried. You can imagine how frustrating it is if you've received these phone calls, or how frustrating it might be for the parent if they're just getting a call out of the blue regarding a behavior that's happened, and as teachers, we have not done anything to try to address the behavior in the classroom. So during this stage of the phone call, I want you to give at least 2 to 3 things that you've already tried with the student in order to manage the behavior, so that this parent can see we are exercising some options on our end. We've put an effort to work with the child before giving the parent this phone call. We need to treat involving the parent sort of as a last resort, so that they can feel on their end that we're putting in the effort. So when he initially stood up in his seat, I actually kind of let him walk around, or just kind of stand up from his seat. I figured maybe he didn't want to sit down. But when he continued to stand in the seat and jump around and would not stop talking, I also tried to move him to a different spot in the room, thinking that maybe it would be a little bit less distraction. But between letting him stand up and then moving him to a different spot in the room, he just will not stop wandering around. He's talking to everybody. Once you've listed a couple different things that you've already tried, move on to the next step, which is to ask the parent for suggestions. What is something that would be helpful in this situation, which is especially useful if the child is on an IEP. If the parent is not coming back with any suggestions, maybe they're like the parent from this video, well, I don't know what you want me to do. Then we want to go to the next step, which is for us as professionals and educators to advise the next steps. Now, this part of the conversation can get a little bit tricky. This is where the defense mechanisms might start bubbling up, because naturally parents want to defend their child. They want to protect them, and they don't want to feel like the child is receiving unwarranted backlash. I want you to introduce this next step. I think we're on step 8 now, very delicately, and be exercising utmost professionalism. Okay, so what I'm going to do then, I am going to take your suggestion and see if I can't just move him closer to me today. But of course, if that doesn't work, then we're just gonna have to see about, maybe sitting him in a small group, moving him to a different classroom. If we can't manage it, then of course, I do have to put him with the assistant principal. Maybe just in that different setting in the office would sort of help to hone that behavior, or give him silent lunch. And of course, we don't want to do any of those things. By advising the parents of the next steps, I'm including them in the disciplinary process for their student, which of course is a good thing, because then nothing should come as a surprise to them. But it's also giving them another opportunity to provide feedback as much as possible. If you have the student in the room with you at the time of the phone call, you may also exercise the optional step 9, which is to put the parent on the phone with the student. And that could kind of go something like this. Okay, so Miss Graham, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I have Micah here with me right now. Gonna give you the chance to talk to him right now, just so that he can hear from you a little bit. It maybe help to hone him back in, and see if, just kind of talking to you doesn't fix the issue. Here you go. Fortunately, a lot of the times, if a student has especially in the younger grade levels, if a student has the chance to speak with their parent, that will help to bring in hone in some of that behavior. If it's not possible, again, just kind of omit step 9. And that brings us to the last and final step. Regardless of what is happening throughout the phone call, you want to document, document, document. Documentation is important anytime you're reaching out to a parent or guardian, because you have to have some sort of trail of contact with the parent to show that you are doing your due diligence. And it also helps to list back any feedback that was coming from the parent. Of course, you want to be really careful with the things that you say in those in your documentation, because any of that can later be used for legal purposes. So I'll be really, really careful not to necessarily include direct quotes. You can use direct quotes if maybe the parent said something particularly egregious, or there's a record within the school of like having difficult interactions with this parent. But beyond that, you want to cover your bases, and the documentation of the phone call helps us to do that. The last thing that I have, and this isn't any sort of step in the process, but this is a useful thing to keep in mind. If you know from past experiences that you're not going to get very far with a particular parent, feel free to call another parent of record. As long as there's no legal documentation on file telling you that a certain parent or guardian is off limits, there's really nothing precluding you from contacting that parent and trying to work out communication with them. A lot of times, if there's been difficulty in the household, one parent will try to isolate or alienate another parent, saying things like, well, don't call so-and-so because they're just not going to help, and my child doesn't even live with that parent. And that's all well and good. That's for them to work out outside of the classroom. But if you are able to legally, it is beneficial to involve both parents so that one is not isolated and so they can both be involved in the disciplinary actions with that child. And when both parents are involved, that usually helps to correct some behaviors as well. Of course, it's not always possible to involve multiple parents or multiple guardians. Some simply just are not available. So again, you want to do that to the extent that it's available to you. So these are just generally the things that I do on my phone calls. And of course, after you've exercised these steps, you've been as professional as possible, you've given the microphone, the platform to the parent to allow them to participate in solution finding. If after all of that, the phone call still wasn't very productive, you can know that you did your due diligence, you did all that you could do, and you controlled your controllables to manage that conversation and to drive a solution. Remember, no matter what happens, don't take these conversations personally, because ultimately the other attitudes, the feedback coming on the other end of the line has really nothing to do with you. Do your best to keep the conversation as cordial and professional as possible, and reassure the parent that you ultimately are on the student's side and you're just wanting to find solutions so that, as the teacher said, we can ensure the success of the scholar. Let me know what you think in the comments, how you feel about how the phone call went with this parent, what you have tried on difficult phone calls that you've experienced with parents. And as always, do all you can to stay fit to teach. Be well.